My name is Amara, and I come from a small Igbo village called Umunneoma. It was a peaceful place, surrounded by green hills and flowing streams. We lived simple lives, farming the land, fishing in the river, and gathering in the evenings to tell stories around the fire. Our village was known for its kindness, where everyone looked out for one another. But everything changed the night the wicked prince came. Prince 𝐍𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝 was famous throughout the land. People spoke of his wealth, his grand palace, and his powerful army. But they also whispered about his cruelty. They said that his heart was as dark as the night, that he took whatever he wanted without care for the people he hurt. We never thought he would come to our village, but we were wrong. It all started one evening when the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. We were preparing for the New Yam festival, a time of joy and celebration. The women were cooking, the men were setting up the village square, and the children were playing, excited about the festivities. I was helping my mother roast yams when we heard the sound of drums in the distance. At first, we thought it was part of the festival. But then we saw them, warriors on horseback, their faces stern and their weapons shining in the fading light. They were followed by a large carriage, adorned with gold and pulled by strong horses. The entire village fell silent as the warriors stopped in the middle of the square. The door of the carriage opened, and out stepped Prince 𝐍𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝. He was dressed in fine clothes, his robes glittering with gold and jewels. His face was handsome, but his eyes were cold, and his smile did not reach them. He looked around the village, taking in everything with a gaze that made my skin crawl. Our village chief, a wise old man named 𝐬𝐤𝐠𝐤, stepped forward to greet the prince. He bowed deeply, showing respect, but I could see the fear in his eyes. "Welcome to Umunneoma, my prince," he said. "We are honored by your presence." Prince 𝐍𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝 smiled that cold smile again. "Thank you, Chief 𝐬𝐤𝐠. I have heard much about your village and its fine people. I have come to see it for myself." The prince walked around the village, followed by his guards. He looked at our huts, our crops, and our livestock. He watched the children playing, the women cooking, and the men working. He did not speak much, but his eyes spoke for him, and what they said was not good. As the evening wore on, we tried to continue with our preparations for the festival, but the presence of the prince and his men cast a shadow over everything. The drums that once sounded joyful now felt like a warning. The food that once smelled delicious now seemed tasteless. And the laughter that once filled the air was gone. Then, as we were lighting the fires for the night, the prince made his announcement. He stood in the center of the square, his voice loud and commanding. "I have decided to take something from your village," he said. "Something that pleases me." Everyone froze. What could the prince want from us? We had nothing of great value, only our crops, our animals, and our people. But then, the prince pointed to a group of young girls who were dancing near the fire. Among them was my younger sister, 𝐲𝐤𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝, only 10 years old. "I will take the girl in the blue dress," the prince said, his eyes locking onto 𝐲𝐤𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝. My heart stopped. I looked at 𝐲𝐤𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝, her innocent face still smiling, unaware of the danger. My mother gasped and held me tight, but it was too late. The prince's guards moved forward, grabbing 𝐲𝐤𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝 by the arm. "No!" My mother screamed, rushing toward them, but she was pushed back by the guards. I tried to run to my sister, but my father held me back, his face pale with fear. The entire village erupted in chaos. People were shouting, crying, and pleading, but the prince didn't care. He only watched, that cruel smile never leaving his face. "This is the price for my visit," he said. "Be grateful, it is only one." 𝐲𝐤𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝 was crying now, struggling against the guards, calling out for our mother. But they dragged her to the carriage, and before we could do anything, they shut the door and rode away, leaving us in the dust. The village was in shock. We had always believed that our kindness and respect would protect us, but the prince had shown us that power and cruelty could take away everything in an instant. My mother wept for days, and my father, usually strong and silent, looked broken. As for me, I felt a deep anger growing inside, a fire that I had never felt before. That night, the village gathered around the fire as usual, but there were no stories, no songs, only silence. Chief 𝐸 spoke, his voice heavy with sorrow. "We have lost something precious tonight," he said. "But we must not lose our spirit. We must stay together, for that is the only way we will survive." The days that followed were dark. The festival was cancelled, and the village felt empty without 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐢's laughter. But something else happened too. The village became closer. People shared their food, helped each other with the work, and comforted those who were grieving. We knew we couldn't bring 𝐕𝐢𝐬𝐢 back, but we could make sure that the village remained strong, even in the face of such cruelty. Months passed, and life slowly returned to normal, but we never forgot that night. We never forgot the lesson that power, when unchecked, can be dangerous, and that we must always stand together to protect what we hold dear. One day, news came that Prince 𝐍𝐤𝐤𝐞𝐝 had fallen ill. His cruelty had made many enemies, and there were rumors that he had been cursed by one of the villagers he had wronged. Some said it was the gods who had punished him, others said it was the spirits of the children he had taken. But whatever the cause, the prince grew weaker and weaker until he was no more. When the news reached Umunneoma, there was no celebration, only a quiet relief. The prince's death did not bring 𝐕𝐢𝐤𝐤𝐝 back, but it brought an end to his reign of terror. And it reminded us that, in the end, those who do evil will always face the consequences of their actions. As I grew older, I carried the memory of that night with me, not as a wound, but as a reminder of the strength of our village. We were small and simple, but we were also strong, and we had each other. That was something even a wicked prince could not take away. And so, we continued our lives, with a deeper understanding of the world, a greater appreciation for the peace we had, and a promise to always protect each other, no matter what.